See, there were two houses built to that plan. The plan was drawn up in 1906 for the Ladies' Home Journal. Here it is. As you can see, the corner panel treatment is different. Other than that, it's just about the same house.
Built in 1908, this was the first Frank Lloyd Wright home constructed in Iowa. But what makes it remarkable today is that it's being moved.
It was entitled A Fireproof House for $5,000. Now, bear in mind, the $5,000 would build a lot of house in the early 1900s. But neither the house in LaGrange, Illinois, nor this house were built of fireproof construction.
The plans called for solid concrete construction, making it fireproof and potentially impossible to move. Luckily, it was made of wood and plaster with a stucco exterior, but still weighed in at 125 tons. It took 2 trucks and 2 moving companies to make the move. The first company lacked sufficient equipment, so Ron Holland, who designs and builds moving equipment, used his self-steering hydraulic levelers with 56 tires to ease the house on down the road. The crew removed obstacles and cleared a path of trees and power lines to make way for what they nicknamed Frank's house. If not for their efforts, the house would have become a parking lot. The First Methodist Church bought the property for badly needed parking space and then donated the house to the city. Not everyone thought the deteriorating house should be saved, but a group of concerned citizens donated equipment, labor, supplies, and cash totaling about $150,000, including the value of the house. One of the contributors and longtime fan of Frank Lloyd Wright is David Murphy.
Ever since I was a child, I've admired the architecture of Frank Lloyd Wright. I'm delighted to see the house being moved instead of being knocked down, which another house of less distinguished origin would have been, I'm sure, just from a standpoint of dollars and cents. I wish it were going the other way. Otherwise, I'm glad to see it being moved.
Mr. Murphy would have preferred a location in a city park across from another Wright building, originally called the City National Bank and Park Inn Hotel.
The buildings were built in 1910. The corner had been occupied by a cafe for many, many years, without the best reputation, as we understand. So it was an eyesore, and the idea was that the bank in itself would be like what we would consider the inside of a safety deposit box, with that much safety and security, which was a pretty good plug for banking in those days, certainly. Inside, it was beautifully done with a lot of ornamentation. Sorry to say that most of that is gone.
About 1923, the bank declared bankruptcy, was sold, and redesigned for retail stores. Today, it's a clothing store. The hotel's first floor also held several shops, and the upper floors served as apartments, which have now fallen into disrepair. The hotel was recently sold, and many feared the wrecking ball was due. But the current owner has plans to remodel.
Mr. Wright, of course, was a very volatile man and was very sure of himself. And so it wasn't unusual when he came to Mason City and was working with 3 rather strong-willed individuals, in Mr. Blythe and Mr. Markley and Mr. Rule, that they would have differences of opinion. And Mr. Wright became very unhappy, left in a huff, went to Chicago, and along with another young woman, not his wife, took off for a trip to Europe.
In his absence, Wright's associate, Walter Burley Griffin, continued work on another project in Mason City. Frank's house is being moved across the street from a housing development called Rock Crest and Rock Glen. Designed to occupy the valley on either side of Willow Creek, just 4 blocks from downtown. It's considered the largest prairie school development in the country. The homes, built between 1912 and 1917, are known by the names of the original owners. James E. Blythe had 3 houses built in Rock Glen and was the sustaining power behind the development. Robert and Bonnie McCoy now own the Blythe House.
You turn into a narrow hallway, and then all of a sudden you pass under a cove, and you enter the living room, which is 33 feet long and expands into the family room. I think they were trying to give a dramatic impact when you entered the living area of the house. In all of the prairie school houses, there is a fireplace, which is a very central and kind of a symbol of home, I would say, in the house.
Walls and floors are solid concrete, with exterior cast concrete ornamental panels.
This house, like most of Griffin's houses, is a perfectly symmetric house in that the garage has a full-size picture window to balance with the windows in the solarium on the opposite side of the house. Particularly interesting about the Page house is that each eave has just a little bit of an upward cant at the end of the eave that gives you a bit of an oriental feel. It has the typical windows of a Griffin house with geometric designs in the windows.
A strong Prairie School statement can be seen in the Rule House. Breaking up the square lines are large piers jutting out from each corner. Interior bookcases, closets, and cupboards are recessed into the corner piers.
When I get in that living room, the cupboards and bookcases are so well detailed, the woodwork and so on, it's just a beautiful interior.
To take advantage of the landscape, the plans of Rock Glen homes were reversed, making the backs face the street and the fronts face the meadow and creek. Closest to the creek, the Schneider house stands at the base of a 20-foot embankment, which allowed architect Griffin to experiment with a multi-level interior. The central fireplace has a unique divided flue. Walter Burley Griffin, Prairie School architect and town planner, is perhaps better known for his town planning of Canberra, the capital of Australia. The Gilmore House was begun by Griffin, but finished by his associate Barry Byrne. Griffin had chosen to stay in Australia, thereby ending the possibility of competing with Frank Lloyd Wright to become the greatest American architect. The Gilmore House was a wedding present from James Blythe to his daughter Maud. Byrne, in his design of the Frank House, shows a move to simplicity of design and departs from Griffin's great concern for symmetry.
The Melson House, to me, is maybe the most important house in Mason City, and it really announces things that were only to be done years later by Wright, and the house is an upward continuation of the cliff that was the quarry.
Called the Castle, the Melson House has a drive-through two-car garage and partially hidden doorways. It evolved from the Prairie School to achieve a dramatic form, but one still appropriate to its setting. As Frank's house nears its destination, it serves as a reminder of Frank Lloyd Wright's strong, continuing influence in the homes being built today.